neurologically impaired here.
Oh, yeah.
Someone put a battery in one. These are double A's. Okay, look, we're going to wing it tonight.
Stewie can't take it.
Okay. All right. Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos. Thank you for coming. The Torah portion is Vayishlach. They can send this back to China. And
Stewie isn't here.
I feel bad because the Cantor's Chumash is underneath all this. You're not supposed to touch most of this. This is what they call muktzah, meaning it's not permissible on Shabbat. And it's also, oh, they're the batteries. Look, I'm not very good at housekeeping.
Donna, go help him.
Stewie went on
It's
a
not-
cruise,
I wouldn't
so he
suggest
can't
anybody
change
open
the
that
battery.
Yeah, we just came off the
Okay.
coaster.
I don't want this either. Muktzah. Muktzah means that it's something pertaining to electricity or finance, and you're not supposed to touch it because it could lead to your using it. A couple of yeshiva boys in my old neighborhood in 1965, and of course they knew Jewish law to a T, but they somehow found a $10 bill in the street.
Uh-oh, I don't like that. Don't let him in.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Somebody let them in?
Yes, please.
Thank you. And they kicked it home, okay? Because technically you're not supposed to touch it, but if you kick it, it seems to be okay. I remember as a child, Shabbos afternoon, when you're bored out of your mind, and you were not allowed to play Monopoly because it dealt with money. It wasn't real money. I'm going to say that now, you know. Try and buy Park Place for $500 now. And so we couldn't play Monopoly, so we got by with Parcheesi. Cards were kind of a gray area because you can gamble with cards. The trick is try not to enjoy yourself too much. I mean, it's Shabbat, but that's cool. All right, well, I just want, hello, good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
The Torah portion for this Shabbos is Vayishlach, and that's, I don't usually do good news and bad news, but the bad news is we're coming towards the end of Bereshit, which is Genesis, which is my favorite book of the 5. But the good news is this is up there. This particular episode, which deals with the life of Jacob, for me is way up there in terms of drama, as a piece of literature. You could make it into a play. It really is very stirring, very touching. It's a lot more inspiring than reading all the laws of leprosy, which is something you run into in Vayikra and Leviticus. What has Jacob been doing at this point? Yes, it's very Jewish. He got into his father-in-law's business, Lavan and son-in-law Cattle Incorporated, and he has managed to fleece, get it? Fleece his father-in-law out of all the spotted and speckled sheep. Do you recall how he did that?
Yeah.
Sort of a weird, do you remember Gregor Mendel? You had to study him in the sophomore year of high school, applied. Well, thank you, you're a sweet pea too. Anyway, it was mixing, I think he was doing peas. Who's the guy who did fruit flies? There was another guy who did fruit flies. It's very hard to breed fruit flies because they keep moving and they only live for 24 hours. But the whole point last Shabbat is that Jacob has been working for the father-in-law for 20 years, and he's gotten bed and board. And Lord knows he's a very large conglomeration at this point because he's got the 2 wives, the 2 concubines, and 12 boys, count them, and 1 girl. Extra credit. Who's the girl's name? What's the girl's name? Dina. Dina, very good. That was a song by Danny Kaye also. Dina, is there anyone who's seen her in the state of Carolina? That was Danny Kaye. That was Danny Kaye. It was his daughter, Dina. Yeah, he had a very unhappy marriage, but, well, that's a separate story. Anyway, Jacob says to Lot, I'm sorry?
And that's not in the Torah.
No, the Lord knows. Danny Kaye would have been, I think he played Noah on Broadway, as a matter of fact. Yeah, I can't remember the name of the show. That was towards the end of his life. It was not entirely successful. But the ark looked really nice. Anyway, Jacob goes to his father-in-law, Lavan, and he says, yo, father-in-law, I've been living with you for well nigh on 20 years, and I haven't gotten paid. And Lavan says, well, I'm kind of low on cash right now. And Jacob says, not to worry, I'll take sheep and goats. And Lavan says, well, make me the proposition. This is where it starts turning into guys and dolls. And Jacob says, you get all the solid colored sheep, the white, the black, the brown, the chartreuse. I get the spotted and speckled. And Lavan says, well, knowing as I do, since Gregor Mendel lives next door, spotted and speckled sheep is a very rare commodity. Sure, son-in-law, you can have the spotted and speckled sheep. So what, now I backed this up last Shabbat and I said, what happens, should a pregnant Jewish woman, pregnant anybody woman, go to a cemetery?
No.
Why not?
Because it'll affect the child.
Right, it's a kinahara, it's a major evil eye. I mean, the demons who infest cemeteries, as you know, might switch the kid, or, God forbid, something bad could happen to her. So generally, if a pregnant woman has to go to a funeral, she stands on the path. You don't get near to the grave, you stand on the path. What does a rabbi do if he's a Kohen?
He can only for his family.
Right, he stands on the path. Why would anybody become a rabbi if they're a Kohen? Because otherwise we wouldn't have any rabbis named Cohen. Okay, so also if a pregnant woman is walking down the street and she sees, God forbid, a blind man, a person with a hunchback, something like that, what could possibly happen?
Poop.
So therefore, a woman who's pregnant should stay in the house for 9 months. And that way nothing bad will happen. Right?
Till she falls down the stairs or something
Yeah,
like that.
very good. See, again, it's horrible. See, my kids are adopted. I always say that a lawyer brought my kids in his briefcase, so the stork did not deliver my children. All right, so Jacob knows that if the sheep look at something unusual during their period of reproduction, I think they used to call it running, then they might come out a different color. So he takes twigs, thick twigs, and he peels them. He peels back the bark in a circular pattern, like a barber pole, and he puts them in the troughs from which the sheep and goats drink. And the sheep look at the twigs, which are in that circular pattern, and how do the babies come out?
All spotted.
Spotted and speckled. Works every time. Kind of a very extreme example of selective breeding. Hello, good Shabbos. But that's what they do. All right. So he's got all the spotted and speckled sheep. Lavan is really not happy about this. And it's time, Jacob says to his family, saddle up, pack the bags, let's go. And like most men, he stands around barking orders to which nobody listens, and the women are doing all the baking and the cooking and whatnot. Of course, it's not like they can stop, at an IHOP or anything. And they're on their way. And Lavan finds out, I wrote about this, I wrote an essay about this. Lavan finds out, and it's midnight, and he and his bully boys, always 400. If you're going to have your men with you, armed to the teeth, they really ought to be 400. Why the number 4? Why not 5? Why not 7? 4 is a sacred number. 4 is a perfect number. It's a square. And how many matriarchs were there? 4. And how many patriarchs? 4 patriarchs. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Shlomi. Okay, no, I'm sorry. That was a nice try.
It's a trick question.
Women are better than men. That's why you get 4 matriarchs and only 3 patriarchs. Okay? All right. So they're all gathering the kiddies and packing the bags, and they're on their way, and they saddle up the camels, and they run off as fast as they can. And Lavan overtakes them. And the great line from Lavan. He is such a thoroughgoing villain. He's right up there with Iago and Lady Macbeth. Well, not exactly Lady Macbeth. Okay, in his wilder moments. And he says, I have it in my hand. I have the power to do thee hurt. But since you married 2 of my daughters, I'm going to leave you alone. But I really don't think, if you had told me you were leaving, I would have made you a kiddush in temple, I would have honored you, I'd have given you a plaque, but instead you sneak off like a thief in the night. What does that tell us about Jacob's relationship with the father-in-law? Not good. Very good.
Relationship.
I'm sorry?
Very good.
Okay. How many of us had a good relationship with our father-in-law? He didn't like that I was sarcastic, but everything else was cool. Okay. Well, anyway, so Lavan leaves them alone. There's some business with the household gods, but we'll let that go. Okay, so now the stuff really gets hairy. Because whom does Jacob really fear? Not Lavan. Lavan is a spit in the bucket, no big deal. Who his brother, Esau. His brother has grown and prospered, and his brother is a mighty hunter. And whom may he be hunting? Coming after
Him.
Jacob. Now, at the end of last Torah portion, it said, Jacob sent forth malachim. Now, malach can go either one of two ways. Pshat, the simple meaning is messengers. Because that's what you do. If you're going through hostile territory, such as Edom, which is the real estate owned by your brother, you send out scouts to make sure everything's cool. But the Hebrew word malachim, and Chabad really goes nuts with this, they say it means angels. Jacob had a coming of angels. Isn't that wonderful? You got a flock of geese, you've got a murder of crows, you've got a coming of angels. And he sends out his own personal angels ahead to come back, and they're waving their wings and telling him if everything is okay. Howsoever, a messenger, whether celestial or earthly, comes back and says, Behold, your brother Esau is coming, and he has 500 armed men with him. And Jacob says, oh my God. Because he's still, this is a very important stage in his life. Like Richard Dreyfuss in Duty Kravitz, like Sammy Glick back in the 50s, I think Bud Schulberg wrote that one, where you've got this, I'm sorry, it's a stereotype, but in this case it applies. He's a little Jewish guy who's an up-and-comer. He's on his way, because the word Jacob means supplanter. It means this is the one who stands in line and pushes the other kids out of the way so he can be the first on the chow line in the cafeteria. It's right there in the Torah. You can look it up. It's not a very commendable thing for a patriarch, and he's the dude we're named after, because you'll see later his name changes to Israel, and, we are Israelites. Okay, so what's he going to do? And immediately, because that is his mindset, plan. We have to reduce the possible destruction of our property. Only in his case, because he's a nomad, a Bedouin, he's not talking about houses and chattels and a corporation and a warehouse somebody could torch. He's talking about his children and his wives. Okay? Now you tell me how he should do this, because he's got to, first he sends out a wonderful gift to his brother. Sheep and goats and camels. Does he bunch them all up? No, he says spread them out. It's just like before the Mahjong game when you were a kid and your mother bought bridge mix and you shouldn't have eaten all the bridge mix. What do you do with the remaining 6 pieces of bridge mix? Do you make a little pile in the middle of the Lazy Susan, or do you spread them out? Come on, I shouldn't have to tell you this. Spread out the bridge mix, okay? Make it look like more. That's what he does. Sheep, goats, cattle. You put, and it even says in the Torah, I don't remember the distance, the exact distance he put between all the animals. It should look like more. Because Esau, look, I feel bad for Esau. Most scholars of today, myself among them, Esau had attention deficit. Esau had a very short attention span. However, years ago, when we were dealing with my boy, we had a book called Hunters, Not Farmers. Kids with attention deficit are hunters. They need to learn, and they're able. Because right now, I think I mapped this out for you folks. Right now, you're looking at me, which is very nice. But a kid with attention deficit is looking up there. He's looking up there. He hears a sound from the door. He looks over there. That's why they can't sit. Okay? Because when you're in a school situation, sitting in rows, which one of my professors told me, it goes back to the sweatshops. Wow, spooky. You got to have farmers. Farmers are capable of doing the same task repetitively over and over and over. Children, close your textbooks. Children, open up your notebooks. Meantime, the poor kid off in a corner is looking out the window because the clouds in the sky are so much more interesting than Mrs. Berkowitz. Okay, she was my actual 6th grade teacher, let her rest in peace. She was about, I'm sorry, Mrs. Berkowitz. It's like the knocking at the door in my pen. Okay, so, all right. So he spreads out the gift and so on, and he puts the least favored wife in the front. She's not even a wife. She's a concubine. You've got Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, and Zilpah. Zilpah, I'm sorry, she's the caboose on the Jacob train. She and her kids go in the front. Who goes behind her? Bilhah. Bilhah, the concubine.
She liked it so much.
I'm sorry? Oh, it's all right. Bilhah goes behind her with her kids. Hello, good Shabbos, thank you for coming. And of course, Leah's very prolific. Leah, all by herself, well, she had some help from Jacob. Leah gave birth to most of the tribes. Okay, do you know what tribe you're from? Neither do I. I really wish we could do that. I really wish there was some way, Ancestry.com would give you your tribe. Okay, and then you could hang out with your tribe and all that stuff. The only ones who know are the Levites and the Kohanim. Okay, Levium and the Kohanim. Okay, and they did. The New York Times had an article a couple of years ago where they tested the DNA of several Kohanim, and they were all related. That is spooky. It's really quite a thing. Okay, so there we go. Goodbye, Zilpah, Bilhah, Leah, Rachel. Everybody's gone. Jacob crosses the river Yabok. Okay. Now, if you recall the idea of the river Rubicon, which before it was a type of jeep, is a real river. When you cross the Rubicon, good Shabbos, that means you're making an irrevocable decision which will change your life. The first person to do that, of course, was Julius before he became Caesar. Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon and said, I'm going to overthrow the Res Publica Romanus, the Roman Republic, and I'll be the first Caesar. And of course, things were okay for a while. Jacob crosses the river Yabok. Jacob was left alone. That is such a pithy verse, because this is a guy who's always been surrounded by people. His mommy spoiled him, his father mostly ignored him, and after that, he was the party boy. He knew what he was doing. He worked hard, 9 to 5, although I don't know how it works in the sheep business, but now he is absolutely alone. And the darkness and the aloneness, which he has not gone through since he first left home, and he slept in the woods with his head on a rock for a pillow, which I think would be very painful. Yeah. And a man wrestled with him till the break of dawn. Who's the man?
An angel.
An angel. Who else?
Himself?
Okay, Esau, because he's by the river. And back in the day, before they knew that, just again, earth science, the earth cools off more quickly than a body of water. The body of water, the river Yabok, cools more slowly after the intense heat of the day, and a mist rises off the river. Now, our ancestors didn't know earth science, so what did they figure it was? It's a river demon. So there you go. He's wrestling with a man, he's wrestling with Esau, he's wrestling with an angel, he's wrestling with a river demon, okay? We don't know. One more person you left out. He's wrestling with himself. The good Jacob, the experienced Jacob, but also the Jacob who has been through life and been around the block a few times, and everybody gets scarred. I always say, these things, the wrinkles, okay? These are badges of honor. You are a survivor. You have made it, and you are still making it. That's the beautiful thing. And the angel, it's a very wonderful bit of dialogue. And they wrestled to the break of dawn, and Jacob is holding the angel. I don't know if it's a headlock. I don't watch WWF or anything like that. And the angel touches him on the thigh, just the hip, really, okay? And he wrenches his thigh so that forever the proud Jacob will walk with a limp, okay? And that's also why we don't eat, you can't get a kosher porterhouse or a kosher sirloin, because it's the gid hanasheh, it's the sinew of the thigh bone. And the only place on earth and it's very difficult and expensive to remove, that's why in the people who keep kosher, you get the front of the cow, and the Gentiles and the Jews who don't keep kosher get the back of the cow. All right. But in Israel, they're able to take out the sciatic nerve. The sciatic nerve, also interestingly, when I wear my wallet in my right pocket and my pocket calendar in my left pocket to supplement the other several calendars I use, I got a pain, okay, in my lower back. And my doctor at the time, Dr. Schwartz, what a surprise, said, just switch them. Put your wallet here and your calendar there. And it went away. It was amazing. Now, Jacob does not have back pockets, so he doesn't have that problem. But they're wrestling. And the sun is coming up, And the angel says, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." And Jacob says, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And the angel, or the demon, or whatever, or himself, says, "Your name is no longer Jacob, the supplanter. Your name is Israel, meaning he who wrestles with God. For you have wrestled with God and with man, and you have won." And Jacob says, "Tell me, I pray you, what is your name?" And the angel says, "You cannot know my name." And either he disappears, or he takes flight, or vanishes, we don't know. Why? Why can't he know the angel's name? Rumpelstiltskin. You know the story of Rumpelstiltskin? If you know the elf or the gnome or the fairy's name, you can control it.
Right.
Why do we say Baruch Atah Adonai? Why do we dare to invoke God's name if we're saying it's a prayer that you say after you use the necessary, or a prayer that you say before a funeral? Why do you put in God's name? It is what you call thaumaturgy. You are hoping that by mentioning God's name, you can ask God to do your bidding. Well, this is a small scale of that. Prayer hasn't been invented yet. Well, anyway, the rest of the episode goes really, really swimmingly. You know how you make yourself nuts the night before the interview, or the night before the exam, or the night before meeting your mother-in-law, whatever it is, any ordeal you can think of. And then the next day you get up, you brush your teeth, you get dressed, and you go, and it's okay. You get the job. You do well on the test. Your mother-in-law says, "I don't care for you, but you can marry my daughter." Okay, you see what I mean? Esav is coming. Here comes Esav with his sword and his shield, and his sword is bronze, by the way. It's not very hard because steel, iron has not been invented yet. That's the Philistines later. And Esav runs to meet him. Now this is where the Midrash, this is where the legends step in. Don't forget, the legends make Esav out to be the biggest villain of all, and it's so sad, so sad. He hugs and kisses Jacob, and the rabbis commenting on the verse say, he bit him in the neck. I'm glad to see you too. I didn't know you had become a vampire. That's what they say. And Jacob says, "Shalom, my brother." And Esav says, "Oh, it's so good to see you," because he forgets. That's another part of his issue. Okay, he forgets. He doesn't remember the whole thing. God has blessed him too. All right, it's a secondary blessing, but hey, a blessing is a blessing. And Esav says, "What is all this cattle?" And Jacob says, it's a gift from me to you. And Esav says, "I don't need them," but he takes them anyway. Okay, because you never can be too sure. And he says, "And who are these people?" "Oh, this is my wife and my concubines and all my children." He says, "Oh, wonderful." And Esav says, tell me what you would answer, "I'll go along with you for a while." What do you think Jacob should say? "Sure. Let's have a reunion. Let's meet at Ben's." No. Jacob says, "My brother, you go ahead. I'll go my own way because the children and my wives are faint from the desert heat. It's all right." And you never see Esav again. Remember how Ishmael and Isaac got together to bury Abraham? Doesn't happen here. And Esav fades into Jewish tradition. Sadly, he doesn't come off well. His name is Edom, which means red. But his name becomes a catchphrase first for Imperial Rome, which was one of our strongest enemies, and finally for the Catholic Church, who was not very nice to us. This has nothing to do with Catholic folks today, but we have a history. So, poor Rachel. She has Joseph. Joey, of course, is the spoiled brat of the family because he's the son of the favorite wife. And she does give birth. She gives birth to Benjamin. And she says she's dying in childbirth, which happened very often in those days. They didn't know about germs, dirt, whatever. They didn't wash their hands. And she calls him Ben-Oni. Rachel calls him the son of my affliction before she dies. And Jacob says no. His name is Binyamin. His name is Benjamin, son of my right hand. And it's, again, all this drama, all these visitations from otherworldly creatures. Okay? I got to do something with that angel. That angel needs something. And where do they wind up? Hebron. Hebron is probably the scene of greatest conflict between us and the Palestinians. There are about 200 mostly religious Israelis living there, surrounded by Palestinians who do not wish them well. And they probably have twice as many soldiers guarding them. It's a strange place, Hebron. I've been there. After that, they just give the genealogy, and that's really it. But beautiful stuff. You really have to read this with a commentary. Any questions? I kind of wore you out. Okay. Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos. We're going to light candles now. Okay, would you ladies care to light candles? Sure. Just okay, right over there. All the ladies should go in this direction. Oh, please rise.
Oh, you're talking to me.
I don't fall over myself, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We only give them to the newcomers. Okay. All right. Just lay it down. We wave our hands. We do cover our eyes and do the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, v'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Asher kiddushanu
B'mitzvotav, b'mitzvotav. V'tzivanu v'hadlik ner, v'tzivanu v'hadlik ner, v'tzivanu v'hadlik ner, shel Shabbat. Amen.
Next year was Shabbos.
Yes.
Good Shabbos, honey.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
That's my name.
Shall we go? Let's start.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbos, 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 so exciting, the Shabbos. Shabbos, 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 so exciting, the Shabbos. Shabbos, so exciting, Shabbos, so exciting, Shabbos, so exciting. Sholem, 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 Sholem. God is I need the Sholem. Sholem, 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 Sholem. God is I need the Sholem. Sholem, so is I the Shabbos, so is I Shabbos, so the ganze Welt. Glick, 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 is happy. So is I need the glick, 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 glick. So is I need the glick, 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 so is I Shabbos, Sholem, so is I Shabbos, so is I Shabbos, and the ganze Welt. Page number 13. Shalom Aleichem, Malakei HaShalim, Malakei Elyon. Melech, Malakei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Orachem leShalom, Malakei HaShalom, Malakei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu, Mileh Shalom, Malakei So let's sing one song before the Lejadodí. Let's do the Romemu, that is on page number 19, if I don't. Yes, 19 in the bottom of the page 19, the last 3 lines, and I want to hear the coordinated key that you are going to do. Okay?
From these folks?
Yes, all these folks. So from I will do. We don't need so many people. We have the power. I have Laura. I have. Here is the power. Okay? So we can do against all of you. Okay?
Uh-oh.
Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtakavu le'arakavu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtakavu le'arakavu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Louder. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtakavu le'arakavu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtakavu le'arakavu. You start. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. And the winner is?
Oh,
T.
out in the streets. These kids. Oh, yes.
This part was
Yes.
better.
The catcher is right voice.
Okay. Déjale Hadodi, likrat kala. Pere Shabbat lekavela. Déjale Hadodi, likrat kala. Pere Shabbat lekavela. La 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 lekadodi.
Likrat kala.
Pere Shabbat lekavela. Lekadodi. Shabbat lekavela. Shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad. Ishmianu el echad. Adonai echad. U'shemo echad. V'shemo letiferet v'shlichei la 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 lechadodi. Lekad kala. Pnei Shabbat lekavela. Lekad kala. Pnei Shabbat lekavela. Likrat Shabbat lechumecha. Ki yom yavecha. Verosh mikedem nesucha. Shabbat lekadoti, likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat lekavela. Lekadoti, likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat lekavela.
Please rise, 22, fourth stanza, face the door through which the Sabbath will enter.
Pnei Shabbat lekavela. Likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat lekavela. Lekadoti, likrat kala.
Please remain standing. The Baruch Hu is page 8 All right, you may be seated.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bakar b'chim tovim, asher bidbaro bari v'raviv ובכוחו הפותח שנים ובדמונם משנים טיב ומחלים את הזמנים ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו מולא יום בלילה גולל אור מפני חושך וחושך מפני אור ומבדיל יום ובין לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני אמרי ברמי.
All right, 29. I think we can read the top left paragraph in English with constancy.
With constancy you have loved your people Israel, teaching us Torah and mitzvot, statutes and laws. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down to sleep and when we rise up, we shall think of your laws and speak of them, rejoicing always in your Torah and mitzvot. For they are our life and the length of our days. We will meditate on them day and night. Never take your love from us. Praise thou you, Adonai, who loves the people of Israel.
כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו בהם נגד יומם הלילה יומם הלילה כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגד יומם הלילה יומם בלילה ואהבתך אל תשים ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב אבו ישראל.
On page 30, we have the Shema. We cover our eyes to show that God cannot be seen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Uncover the eyes. We'll read the English paragraph. You shall love.
You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall take to heart. Teach them diligently to your children. Recite them at home and when night and day. Bind them as a sign upon your hand and as a reminder above your eyes. Inscribe them upon the doorposts of your homes and upon your gates.
We'll read silently, bottom of 30, end of the paragraph on 31.
Adonai Elohechem, amen.
Middle of 32, we've got the Mi Chamocha.
Yalai la 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 la, yalai la la la, yalai la 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 la, yalai la la, yalai la la la, yalai מי כמוך בעלים אדוני, מי כמוך נראה בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלך, נורא תהילות אוסף אלך, כהנותיך רעו בניך, כהים לפני משה, שלי אנו ויפנו, אדוניים לא לעולם ונאמר כי פעול יד יעקב וביהלום יד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני על ישראל.
As always, on the top left of 33, this is the portion of the service where we go around, and if there's someone you know in need of Refu'ahShelemah, quick and speedy recovery, you can mention their name, Jewish folk, Gentile folk, friends, relatives, anyone at all. Thinking about Howard E. Lackman, Refu'ahShelemah, and Howard Shulman, Refu'ahShelemah. Okay? Yes, anyone?
Mandy Wexler,
Refu'ahShelemah,
Martin Baker,
Refu'ahShelemah,
Tony DeGina, Beverly DeGina,
Refu'ahShelemah,
Robert Hiller.
Refu'ahShelemah,
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
You know.
Refu'ahShelemah. Yes, yes,
Chayasur Bas Rosa.
Refu'ahShelemah,
I am Yehuda ben Mordechai,
Refu'ahShelemah,
Jan Levinson.
Refu'ahShelemah. Yes. Okay.
Ellen Morris.
Refu'ahShelemah. Okay.
Russell Schottger, Martin Reynolds, Bart Dozer.
Refu'ahShelemah. Okay.
Edward Packman.
Refu'ahShelemah. Okay. Yes.
Prokats,
Refu'ahShelemah.
Lola,
Refu'ahShelemah.
and Marshall.
Refu'ahShelemah. Okay. And of course, praying as we always do for our brave troops defending our country all over the world, as well as our brothers and sisters in the state of Israel. Let's read the top left-hand paragraph in English on 33. Help us, Adonai, to lie down in peace, and awaken us again, our sovereign, to life. Spread over us your shelter of peace. Guide us with your good counsel. Save us because of your mercy. Shield us from enemies and pestilence, from starvation, sword, and sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, O God, who watches over us and delivers us, our gracious and merciful ruler. Guard our coming and our going. Grant us life and peace now and always. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Praise to Adonai, who spreads the shelter of peace over us, over all his people Israel, and over Jerusalem and the entire world. Baruch atah Adonai, Aporei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Amo Yisroel, V'al Yerushalayim, V'al Kol Ha'olam Kulo. Amen. 34 is the V'shamru. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, La'asot et HaShabbat le'dorotam berit olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, La'asot et HaShabbat le'dorotam berit olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat le'dorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot
Vayom Hashvi, Shabbat Vaynafrash, Shabbat Vaynafrash, Shabbat Vaynafrash, Veshamru Bnei Yisrael et HaShabbat, Lasot et HaShabbat, Le'oret HaBerito.
Please rise, half Kaddish, bottom of 34.
Inadar v'yitkadash v'rabba. Amen. Ve'arma divra kirute ve'yamlik malchutem. V'kal yekon v'yom echad. U'chayei lechol beit Yisrael. V'agala v'agala u'bizman charim. V'yimru amen. V'yishmei rabba v'vorach. V'yolam yom ve'yom maya. Yivarach v'yishtabach. V'yipar v'yitroma midrase v'yitadar. V'yitale v'yitahalal. Shvei kodeshah. Leila v'nikol v'nikata v'shiratak. Tush v'chata v'nechemata. Tamiram v'yama.
All right, the Amidah, 35b to 38. After you're finished, you may be seated.
Okay. That's it.
All right, if you haven't finished the Amidah, please continue. Otherwise, we're on page 48 with the full Kaddish. 48.
Inadar v'yitkadash v'rabba.
Amen.
Ve'arma divra kirute ve'yamlik malchutem v'chayei kol v'chayei Yisrael. V'agala v'yizman charim ve'yimra. V'yishmei rabba v'vorach. V'yolam yom ve'yom maya. Yivarach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yidrom midrase. V'yitadar v'yitalim v'yidalal shvei kodeshah. Leila v'nikol v'nikata v'shiratat v'shvekata v'nikavata v'namar v'yimra. תתקבל אצלו תולבותו לכל ישראל, קדם אבות ומשמעיה ואימרו. בבית של אברהם אמן שמעיה וחיים עלינו על כל ישראל ואימרו. עושה שלום לברמה ויעשה שלום עלינו. ויעקב ישראל ויעקב יושבי תבל. ואימרו אמן.
All right, on 9:49 is the Kiddush for Shabbat, and Rita and Annabeth will distribute the wine. Please rise.
What's the juice?
Juice. Thank you.
This is juice, we have wine coming up.
No, I just never worry about the
Wine's coming.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, orech v'yarafem. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher קידשנו במצוותו ורצה בנו, ושבת קודשו, נאווה ורצון לנחילנו. זיכרון למעשה בראשית, וים תקרא למקראי קודש, תקל יציאת מצרים, עמנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים בשבת קודשך, יעד רצון ינחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen. I am the Sholom Symphos.
She didn't make it over.
All right, the Aleinu on page 51.
Wait,
Pretty good farming. No,
you don't have the
the
lights
curtain,
open.
just the curtain.
עלינו לשבח אדון הכל, לכן גדולה יוצא בראשית, שבו עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמענו משפחות אדמה, שלא שם כחלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל עמונם. אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא בשמיים ויוצא הארץ, ומשה בקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו לגבי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אלות, ארץ מלכנו אפס סגולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום בהשמות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, השמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ ייקח עלינו. נאמר, היה אדוני מלך על כל הארץ, היום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
Okay, the curtain and the doors are closed. I'm going to ask you all to please remain standing. We'll all say Kaddish together in memory of the victims of the atrocity in Jersey City. It's not good. We'll do the mourner's kaddish. Gadol v'yikadosh shemei Rabbah Amen. Yalmad yivrach kutei v'yamdich malchutei. V'chayei l'od v'nei l'chon v'chayei l'chol beit Yisrael. V'analau b'zman kariv yibru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah yivrach v'yamam omei omaya. Yivrach v'yishabach v'yiklar v'yitrumam yitnaseh. Yitadar v'yitaleh yitalal shmei kedusha b'richu. Ve'ela min kol birchata shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, v'yam yama v'yibru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, chayim aleinu yalkol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mamav, v'yaseh shalom, aleinu yalkol Yisrael v'yimru shmei v'yimru amen. All right, please be seated. We'll hear a few words from our wonderful president. Yes.
Good Shabbos, everyone. Welcome to our beautiful shul. It's so lovely to see you here and to see all the old friends who are not so old, but welcome. And a sweet and healthy, happy Shabbat to everybody. You know, tomorrow we have our more traditional service in the morning, followed by our wonderful rabbi's class, which will be on
Hasidism again, because we're getting closer to it, but folks are wonderful. We have such participation. People ask questions, people make comments. We do read 2 lines, and we're off to the races. So we're going to try and push it a little farther. Sorry.
You know what I always say on Shabbos is, don't miss rabbi's classes. Just don't miss them. On Monday morning at 10:30, we have our, at 10 o'clock, we have our Aging Gracefully group that is led by our wonderful therapist in residence, Laura Durant. It is a marvelous group where people feel very free to speak about whatever it is that Laura has a way of channeling what's going on in people's lives. And the speech just comes freely. Everyone feels good about speaking about whatever is on their minds. It's called Aging Gracefully because we don't want to age like a klutz, and Laura will see to it that we don't. So that's at 10 o'clock on Monday morning. Rabbi's classes are on Wednesday at 4:30, adult Hebrew class, 7 o'clock, current events class. Coming up very quickly is our Hanukkah celebration on Friday, the 27th. It's a Shabbaton, a catered dinner. We'd love to have you all come. If you haven't chosen what you would like to have for dinner, please contact me in the office. I'll be there on Monday morning. I must call the caterer this week to give him an approximate number for our wonderful meal. We're requesting that for the Shabbaton, you all bring your menorahs and candles for the appropriate day, because we're going to do what we did last year. We're going to have a mass menorah lighting. It's absolutely beautiful. It's dramatic. It's a wonderful way to celebrate the holidays together. All of you at home who are watching us, please, if you'd like to come to the Hanukkah celebration, just call the office and I'll be happy to take your reservation. On December 24th, our wonderful cantor Javier is going to be performing in a concert at Temple Anshe Shalom. There's a flyer outside if you'd like to attend. There's going to be a nice group of us that are coming, right?
Yep.
On December 25th at 11 in the morning, Rabbi is going to be here to conduct an Ask the Rabbi session. That's, the 25th is usually kind of a blank day for us, and Rabbi is making it very exciting. So if you have questions over this last wonderful year for our amazing Rabbi, write them down and come. and you'll get the answers, and you won't be disappointed. Going into January, on January 5th, we're having the second part of Dr. Murray Lichtenstein's lecture on words. His first lecture was so successful that there was a demand for a second one, so he will be with us. Dr. Lichtenstein is a professor emeritus from Hunter College, New York. He's one of our beloved members. His lectures are not only fascinating, but entertaining as well. So, and check the bulletins and check the website. We have things planned for you right now up through April. So I wish you a sweet Shabbat.
Thank you.
I also want to welcome our guests, who it turns out, when Annabeth and I were living in New Hampshire, we were neighbors, because they're from Portland, Maine, which is what, 45 minutes? Something like that. Also, Mazel Tov on the 50th anniversary of your bar mitzvah. Did you have to be with them too?
I was this tall.
Oh. Very nice. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we're on Don Olaman.
Yeah.
Okay. Frosty the Snowman. Here comes Santa Claus. Here comes Father Mattathias.
Yeah.
Whatever you want. Santa's truck.
I'm going to share with you a tune that is Sephardic tune. Very nice. It's very repetitive. You're gonna handle. So it's Andon Olam Asher Malach V'Telem Kol Yetzer Nira Le'edrasa V'Chefzo Kol Asai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kiklot HaKol Levado Yimloch Torah Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Omer Ve'hu Yeh V'Tiv Hara Ve'hu Echad Ve'en Sheni Ve'amshir Lo Le'achmira Ve'li Ve'shit Ve'li Tachlit Ve'lo Ha'oz Ve'am Misrad Ve'hu Eli Ve'chai Wali Ve'tzurchem Li Ve'etzara Ve'hu Nisei U'Banosli Ve'nat Kosi Ve'yom Ekra Ve'yado Avkid Ruchi Ve'tishor Ve'ahira Ve'i Ve'ruchi Gevi Achi Adonai Ri Ve'lo Ira Ve'i Ve'roche Geve'ati Adonai Ri Ve'lo Ira.
Yasher Paul. Please rise, closing benediction.
Yevarkecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha.
The Lord bless you and keep you.
Yair Adonai bana velecha v'yichunecha.
The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you.
Yisa Adonai bana velecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
The Lord turn his face unto you and grant you peace. We'll say Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos and good Shabbos. See you tomorrow.
We're in the big room tomorrow. We're in the sanctuary.